Ladies and gentlemen, you may mean I'm playing the advocate of political realism. This is only to a little extent true, because what I mean is that the traditional contrast between idealism or normativism and realism is becoming obsolete, and that we are indeed going beyond that traditional cleavage. And that's why, that's because politics itself, as we have seen in lecture number 9, for example, politics itself generates moral problems that are, let's say, internal challenges to politics, something with which politics is necessarily confronted. This is the case with the little challenges I've talked about in that lecture. This is the case with the more general problem of our responsibility for future generations, given that we have already enough spoiled the earth and the environment in which their life conditions in a world. And this is, let me say, this is just a footnote, this is true also in case of non-lethal challenges. For example, in the problem of what is a just and economically sound relationship between what the older generations owe to the younger and vice versa. It's the problem with the pension system in the West, but it's also the problem with the relationship between old and youth in the People's Republic of China. Another factor that has, let's say, brought ethical questions into the very mechanism, the very business of politics is the globalized quest for human rights as a political factor, as something that governments and international agencies and whatever cannot simply make an abstraction from. We can rerun all these under one more heading, politics and values. We live in a time, to speak with Max Weber, with a term invented by Max Weber, in a time of polytheism, in which, at least in a time in which, at least in Western societies, the existence of a plurality of values as the values were the many gods of the Greek Olympus is more accepted than before. The problem is not just the plurality of conflicting values. The problem is that each person tends to give, or each group tends to give primacy to one of those values over the others. And that is a problem for our coexistence in the polity. And this coexistence is possible wherever politics is not, let's say, is not smothered by other things, by other approach to communal life, wherever politics is independent not from religion or philosophy as such, but is independent from the truth claims of religions, philosophies, and ideologies. If you bring the truth claims of religion, let's say, into politics, what you have is a theocracy, and a theocracy is not exactly the polity in which a tolerant coexistence of many gods and many values is possible. However, even in secularized societies in which polity is acknowledged, not everything not every problem is settled, because there is a number of, let's say, ultimate problems concerning the meaning and the regulation of life, problems such as abortion and euthanasia, in which the coexistence of, let's say, contrasting religious and philosophical values in the polity is difficult, and it is also difficult to find a compromise. And compromises in this field are mostly precarious, and this is the reason why one should be take very much care of not breaking up existing and functioning compromises. Well, I am coming now to, let's say, to final considerations, and I try to explain why I give so much weight to the complexity of politics, to the understanding of the complexity of politics, instead of recommending, suggesting, or preaching a way, this way or the other way, to solve, to cut down, to simplify the complexity of politics. This is because I think that without fully understanding this complexity, there is little chance for the successful action, for successful political action. And this is why I think that, let's say, the endeavor of to understand politics in a neutral approach to it, at first neutral approach to it, is more productive than giving weight, giving so much value to stating one's own beliefs. If you don't respect the complexity of politics, the complexity of motives, the complexity and plurality of values, the fragility of compromises and temporary solutions, you also run the risk of generating perverse consequences, such as imposing belief systems or doctrines that are not open to self-criticism and to reality test. In this case, if you have such a simplistic image of politics in mind, you risk to ruin the economy, to hurt solidarity and tolerance, which are existential pillars of our coexistence, and to finally may justify resorting to authoritarian policies. Another thing, another false, wrong approach from which, with regard to which I want to issue a warning, maybe I already done so, is do not apply, do not try, do not insist on applying immediately categories and principles such as those I've talked about in this MOOC to single events or single processes. In order to make this so-called application, you need something we had no time to talk about. You need what Kant calls Urteilskraft, the faculty of judgment. And Hannah Arendt, who is not exactly my cup of tea in political philosophy, has written a beautiful book on Kant's considerations on the faculty of judgment.